I haven't made a video for a while, just looking for inspiration on what to bring you next. Something a little bit different. I'm going to show you how to make a muddler tube. So something a little bit different. These basically designed to fish deeper. You'll see in the construction there's actually a tungsten cone in the whole process, but these are basically to push water down deep. So rather than being a surface lure, which you would assume with the deer hair head, that is actually there to push water rather than actually push the surface film as per what you would expect with a surface lure for sea trout, for example. So yeah, the bulk of the head and deer hair will hold that shape. That is literally just to push water when it's fishing that little bit deeper. It also creates a little vortex around that to make all of the fibers behind just kind of dance and move in the water. So yeah, just a really cool pattern which I thought I'd show you. You can vary the colors accordingly to whatever you want to construct. I'm going to show you how to tie one of these basically, which is more or less like a fire tiger type pattern, but with a black head. So yeah, you can vary the color of the inner tubing and then the outer tubing accordingly. I'm going to do the one with the black head, so as a result I'm actually going to use black tubing. I normally use the inner tubing. The colour of the inner tubing is as per the colour of the head. So again, I'm using black deer hair, so I'll be using black inner tubing. So all I do to begin with is going to burn the end just to create an edge on that inner tubing, like so. Just see that, and then I'm just going to cut a length of like a fluorescent, this is like a fluorescent orange. I'm going to cut a small section, probably 1 centimeter or so. That's all I do with that. Is I then just slide it onto that inner tubing. So you've got some inner tubing and some outer tubing, like so. And to finish this off, it's a bit like Meccano. I then have some tungsten cone heads. This is a size medium in fluorescent yellow. So that just kind of slots on there. So you want medium or large in these cones, just like so. And then it can be slid onto your holder. I'm just going to put that in place there, like so. Take that tip back just to there. That's perfect. Tighten that up. I'm just going to slide that down a little bit so it's not as inverted. There you go. Okay, so that's the base of the fly ready. Thread, I'm just going to use some Vivas 10O. Catch that in, and this is where you'll basically create a bit of an edge just to secure the cone and tube in place. So just create a bit of an edge against that, just build it up just to stop everything from sliding around, like so. So at this point you can use some like long straggle frits, or you can use like crystal hair, something similar to that, or you can use some mylar, like a mylar tubing. So this will be very much like you've probably seen a fly called a Munker fly. This would be very similar to a Munker fly in style, how they construct that. So that's all you do. I've got some, it's like an Opal Mirage tubing. So all you do, just cut a length probably around 5 centimeters or so. What you then need to do is just pick out these ends just take a dubbing needle in there and just fray them out. Keep fraying them out. Don't fray it all out. You do want to keep a tying in point, so just pick them out like so, and then slide that onto your tubing. Slide it up and down. There you go. And see them just splaying all the way around there, and then just bring your thread over and secure in place. So again, just vary these accordingly. So your favorite colors, so you go for, you know, woolly gun colors. Yeah, combinations are endless really. Just keep cutting it. I'll do some, you know, black and silver ones for your sea trout fishing. Okay, just going to tidy up those ends. Next step is the wing. So if you are tying them like they tie the Munker style, they actually do them, it's a bit complicated. You actually tie them, you get a whole skin and actually cut the wing out of those whole skins basically. It is a bit of a faff if I'm being honest. A bit of a cheat for you is you can buy these Zonker, I think they're hairline Zonker rabbit strips. Make sure you buy them in Magnum, which is like the widest skin version. So these are ready cut in strips for you. What you then need to do is, and it's just a bit of a cheat, you then cut a V. So basically what the guys do with the bigger rabbit, or they use a lot of American possum, they use mink for the smaller ones, there's some squirrel which they use, but basically these will do the job. And what you need to do is then, like I was saying, just take the, that's the normal skin there, so just cut a section of this Magnum Zonker and just take your scissors in from the skin side and just cut that V, so then you have a tapered wing. You can see it there, just tapering down into a much finer tail section. That's just to create a bit of movement, but also to create that what they call the teardrop shape, which a lot of the Scandi tyers, when you're tying temple dogs and so forth, that's what you're trying to achieve. A lot of those flies, it's achieving the same in this style of fly basically. So just measure that up. You can obviously do some much longer versions or some much shorter versions, just depending on the water height, color, whatever. That looks about right there. So that'll probably be like overall 7 centimeters or so. So what you would then do is so I'm going to cut, I got a bit too much of this rabbit, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut back, just cut a section off, just cut it back to the skin. But what you don't want to do is tie in there, because if you tie in there, basically you lose, there's no bulk in this section at all. So see this section here, there's no bulk, so the bulk really starts back here. So what you want to actually do is cut it slightly longer, and your tying in point is much further back. It's almost where the tips start. So see where the barred section starts? That's almost your tying in point. So you actually have a lot more bulk back there. So you just wrap it around as well. So this bulk that we're working with, kind of wrap it around the tube slightly. So you kind of got it splaying around the tube, like so. See that? See, displaying around the tube? So see that tapering effect there already, that teardrop? So when that's secure, just work it down like so and cut off that excess. The skin takes a bit of tidying up. Don't be too precise because we're going to work in a big muddler head, so you don't need to worry too much about neatness at this point. So just like so. And then we're going to need a bit of flash. So for the wing I'm going to use some what's it called, crinkle mirror flash in orange, but basically whatever you've got. It's going to take one strand, take it in behind the thread, up and over, into position, and then make sure it's going down the center of the tube and tie it in. A couple of turns there. Make it wet, it'll behave itself, but also by making it wet it gives you a measuring point. Cut the two sections at two different intervals. You don't want them fishing the same length. I'm going to get one fishing towards the tail end, one probably about a centimetre or so back, just like so. What we're now going to do, we've got some pretty cool stuff which is called electric ripple ice fiber. There you go, in fluorescent yellow. This stuff is really cool. I can use just a couple of strands. We'll just use one down each side. It's a really bold material. Don't find that you need to use that much of it. So just take it down. I've got two strands coming up here. I'm just going to try and splay them out slightly to get them one either side. Just take a turn just to secure them, and then you can get them to sit where you want them to. Just alter the position. I just want these running a bit more down the side, like so. And actually the length is pretty good there. Just double the base of those back just to secure them in place, and they won't pull out, just like so. And then we're going to add jungle cock. As always, jungle cock is an optional extra. I do like eyes on these though, so you could use there's like tab eyes for example, or just experiment, but don't feel that you have to use jungle cock. When you do use jungle cock though, tie them in really long. You don't want them up here, because what will happen then when you do the deer hair head, what happens is that it'll be hidden by the deer hair. So you actually want them protruding quite far back, and probably further back than you would normally tie on a temple dog or just a normal fly, just for that simple reason that you will otherwise end up hiding them in the deer hair when you start spinning it. Measure them up just like so. Let's check that. Pop it up a little bit. Looks good. Secure that. Bend back the bases, and then snip off that excess. So all that's left now to do is spin the deer hair, but before we do that, I'm just going to wet all this down just to get everything just out the way. So what we do is we actually need to cut this tube, the inner tubing, to a point, because we need to burn the edge onto this already before tying in the deer hair, because we can't burn it afterwards. You'll just end up burning the deer hair. So what I do, I bring in a scalpel and I measure it to a point, so about there. Remember, it's going to burn back a little bit, so don't make it too short. So it's going to roll the knife around there, just like so. This is a blade that's been around for a while, so it's going to take a bit to cut through. There you go, it's gone. And then that just slides off. What we then do is, so we burn this edge up. Just keep turning. like so. And when you get to a point, I like to bring in my scissors just to encourage that back a little bit. Because of the deer hair, I don't want the deer hair exploding off the front of the tubing. Okay, so now you've got a clear tying in point for that deer hair. So all we need to do is take up a bunch. So at this point you could use like a bright orange, red, black, doesn't really, it's down to you at this point what you're trying to create. So I'm trying to create something a bit, I know it sounds a bit daft with all the colours we got in here, something a bit more somber. So I'm going to bring in black. It's got some nice black deer hair. I'll take a good pinch of deer hair, and that's all I'm doing. I'm just taking the underfoot out. Measure this up where the points, so I want the points just before the main eye of that jungle cock. I'm just going to come up, I'm going to take 2 loose turns and then spin it. Usually if you've got a big enough pinch, 1 pinch will do it, and 1 pinch will do it on this one. So you've got that 1 pinch in place. Take your thread through that deer hair, keep working it through until you're roughly where you believe the eye to be, and then what you then need to do is press all of this back. What I use, you can get tools made for this. I use the tip of an old pen, and this just works great as a push tool for the deer hair. You'll just see it there, it just stacks it all back. You can just brush it all to one side like so, and then you can push it back a little bit just to expose the end of the tube like so. Keep holding it back, and then you can bring your thread through and do a couple of turns in behind. In behind the burnt edge, just like so. Take a bit of time because you want all of this splaying back. Just tidy it up. That's perfect. What I then do is I bring in the super glue and just put a load in behind. That's just going to seal everything off. You don't need to do a whip finish because there's going to be a load of super glue in there, so that won't go anywhere. Just keep working around, and what you'll find as well, if you brush your deer hair back as you're doing this, it just holds all of the deer hair back in place at the same time. So it's a dual purpose. There you go. So you can now cut the thread, and it's now basically a game of trimming all of this back. I actually find this a lot easier to do by removing it from the vise, so I'm going to try and do that while still showing you what's going on, because now I can actually twist this as I trim. So what I do is bring your scissors in and start off at an angle. Just don't take too much at one time. Yeah, you've taken a lot of time to get to this stage, so don't go heavy-handed and destroy all of your hard work. So keep twisting it around, just take a little bit each time. Again, don't be tempted just to cut in too much to that deer hair in one go. Just keep twisting it for that even even effect. And this stuff's messy, by the way, so do have something underneath. I've got my reliable fly tidy underneath me here, which is trapping most of this mess. Keep trimming it all the way around, keep twisting it on that holder, like so. You can see it's starting to take shape now. So there you go. You can see it now from the, pretty happy with that. You give it another tidy up if you wanted to, but honestly that looks pretty good. So you can see from the front angle, you can see the tapering. So that looks ready to fish. So the beauty of adding the tubing and stuff, you can see the little fluoro tubing showing up underneath. I just got to splay that stuff around a little bit, the mylar tubing. The beauty of having that, I don't like actually fishing free swinging or swimming hooks. So by adding this little section in here, that little tube, it gives a little attractor point, fluorescent attractor point, but also you can then attach your tube fly liner, not a liner, sorry, the extension tubing, and then you can attach the hook off the back of that, like in there, if you see that. And you can also vary the color of that extension tubing as well, but yeah, that's the idea of that. So yeah, there you go. A pretty cool looking fly. Obviously that color would be great in higher water, like a fire tiger type fly. You can see the bulk carries through from this section and just really tapers off into a fine tail. That's because of how we cut that rabbit. You can see it underneath there, but also how, if you remember, we tied the rabbit in quite far back, so we actually got a bulk in right from the start. So that's just rolling back in from this head, so it just carries that bulk through, which we want to, because obviously this fly is supposed to push water, and then finishing off in a really fine mobile tail. So yeah, tie a few up, again vary the colours according to your preference on your home rivers. Tie a few up and give them a go, and hope they bring you luck. If you haven't subscribed, please do, so whenever I post a new video you'll be the first to know. To those that have subscribed already, thank you very much. I appreciate your support. Tight lines.